Yeah, for sure.
It would be, because, Randall, have you made levels?
Not really. I've played around with the editor a little bit, but I have not really finished a level.
It's fun. I like making Mario level difficulty levels.
Yeah.
So like
actually
hard
fun levels. Yeah.
Yeah. Some like maybe that have like a mechanic that's a little bit like, ooh, that's fun. But for the most part, I don't know.
That's probably what I'd want to make too, is just like what would feel like a normal Mario level, honestly.
And those are so few and far between. I know. When you play like endless mode.
Yeah, they're like you never find them.
Yeah. It's either one that auto completes itself or one that's like a Kaizo level. And I'm just like, no,
thank you.
Doing this.
Hey everybody, welcome to Pursuing Pixels. This is episode number 32, and my name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with Randall Nolery.
Hey everybody.
DJ Mandolini.
Yo.
And John Hines.
Hi there.
And we are back, and we're back again to talk about Baba Is You. We're going to try this thing again. Mm-hmm. We did it a couple weeks ago, and unfortunately, as we mentioned last week, lost the audio for that.
Nope.
At least everyone's audio but Randall's, and I thought about trying to upload that, but there was some chunks of just, Randall's very agreeable, so.
I tried to.
But with no context, it's not super valuable there, so. But anyways, what's that?
I add value.
Yeah, of course, always.
Thank you.
But yeah, we can just dig right back into Baba Is You, and I think DJ's probably the only one of us who's actually gotten further than the last time we played. I mean, I'm still just stuck, and I admittedly I haven't played much since, but I guess we can just kind of set the game up. If you're not familiar with the game, we'll be a little briefer with it, but since we have done this once before, but it's pretty much like a top-down perspective puzzle game where you're pushing around different words one tile at a time, and you're basically setting up different rules where, the main rule for most of these puzzles is Baba Is You, and that's the character that you control. And obviously, if you push either Baba or you away or towards something else, different rules will apply. So Baba is wall, your character will turn into a wall. And that's pretty much the basic premise, but as DJ has
win.
yeah, I guess, yeah. And then so the flag is win, or you can change that depending on, sometimes you're walled in. There's all different kinds of setups. But yeah, I mean this game is just I guess I don't really know what to say. Why don't you talk a little more about it, Randall? Since you're itching to jump in here.
Yeah. So the first thing it reminds me of is Chip's Challenge. I've got to get that in there again because
that's a great touchstone for sure.
Also,
for someone who is not familiar with,
Chip's Challenge was like came with like
Windows 95.
Yeah, it was like part of the Windows games package.
Best of Entertainment, I think, is the
that
collection.
Sounds right. Wow, nice memory.
Yeah.
I was really happy the first time you mentioned Chip's Challenge because my whole family played that.
Oh yeah, that was a great.
We wrote down in a notebook like what the passwords to each level were.
Oh yeah,
and that anytime that we got stuck, we're like, no, we need to beat this so we get the password.
But yeah,
I remember my cousin and his dad kind of bonding over that too. My uncle, they would do the same thing, just play through the levels each night, and cool bonding experience on the new computer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, so Chip's Challenge, it was, you were Chip, you were the character, and it was a top-down puzzle game, but you were trying to get to, it was like a blue warp, square, and that was the end. And most of them you would have to collect chips, which were like computer chips, and you would, some of them were like, oh, you need to collect 5 in order to unlock the gate. And then once you do that, you can pass through it. Or sometimes you didn't need to collect any chips and you just needed to avoid enemies. And there were different enemies that behaved in different ways.
I feel like I remember pushing keys around as well to get doors open. Does that sound right?
Yeah. Yeah, the key is definitely that was like the touchstone. As soon as you said Chip's Challenge, I was like, oh yeah, those keys.
Yep.
And the footwear, because there was the fireproof boots, there was the fins for going in water, there was the ice skate. That you
There's
could just
footwear and Baba Is You?
No, not
okay.
Baba.
I was like, I haven't gotten there yet.
Baba is shoe.
This is a Chips Challenge discussion.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh man, I was like, man, I totally missed the mechanic here. But anyways, I mean, obviously, Baba Is You is taking what the foundation or whatever that Chip's challenge laid and really subverting that. And I mean, it's these are really I don't know, some serious brain teasers or head scratchers, whatever you want to call them. These are some really tough puzzles. I don't know if I think DJ, would you say there's like 8 or 10 worlds in the game?
Maybe
Maybe
9 or 10. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and I mean, I'm stuck on a level on World 3, and
Same.
I'm sure this is the kind of game where like you get stuck on a puzzle, you come back to it, maybe it clicks, maybe it doesn't, you come back to it. But I've come back to this one 3, 4, maybe 5 times now, and still been stuck.
I remember what it is. I want to tell you the answer so bad.
Well, it's one that like I don't even feel like I feel like I obviously have not, but I feel like I've tried every option there is, because it's one of the levels, like some of them will have, you can almost have 10 different, maybe not 10, but 8, different sets of rules that are in place. But this is like, there's maybe only 5 or 6 words within this wall that I'm in, and then there's a few rules that are in place, like
I know
is
this
it?
level.
It's either key is defeat, or I forget what it is. It's something.
I know what you're at too. Yeah.
Okay. Well, apparently everyone's further than me.
But actually, this level I think was a really good example of like you like introducing mechanics like almost out of frustration, where like you are trying literally everything, but there's not a lot that you think you can do until the moment where you actually either by accident or just like think maybe this will work, and then you try it, and once you do and that does work, that moment of like inspiration where you're like, okay, that unlocks a whole realm of possibilities that I didn't even think were possible before.
Right.
Which gives me anxiety.
Well, I like that a lot about this game, but at the same time, I do think, and this is a small gripe, because I do think most of these puzzles are pretty genius, and we did talk about before a lot of these levels in comparing what we did and how we solve them. It's like they're not like these prescribed exact, you have to do this in this order to solve the puzzle. It's like we're really solving some of these in totally different fashions, which is really cool. But I am finding at least once in a while that like I am just like having to try something that doesn't seem like it would work, or at least my brain, and maybe I'm just stupid, but like it's seeming like I'm not like some of the mechanics. I don't think I would have, like just pushing a word, for example, like into a water tile and then the water kind of evaporates. Like that was just like I was, again, out of frustration, just shoving tiles all over the place, and that works. Yeah. Okay, I can like. But I guess that was like, there's no way I would have thought of like, that might be a mechanic. But this is a very small gripe, because most of these puzzles, again, are really well thought out.
And along those same lines, I think I really like how the visual design is so simple and clean, where it just doesn't get in your way. It's still unique. It has a nice hand-drawn feel and it's cute, but it doesn't get in your way. Like, this game is all about those logic puzzles and just informing as best as it can, like, these are your options potentially. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and even like the music, it just kind of stays like a nice chill. It's a little repetitive. There's not a ton of songs, or at least in how far I am in the game, there's maybe like 2 different songs per world, it seems. But it's just like a nice chill background. But even though I always say, like, I like putting on a podcast while I play a game, that not necessarily the best idea with this one, because you do want to devote demanding. Like full attention to what you're doing.
Your whole brain.
I tried doing a podcast, and I think I was focused on one level the entire time. I didn't. I finished the podcast. I didn't make any progress.
Yeah, and I do really like that visual style that you mentioned, Randall. It almost has that like squiggle vision, like old school Simpsons episodes.
And can't you turn that off?
You can turn that off. It's like, I think they call it the wobble effect, and it looks like, it really makes it look like almost like a Commodore 64 game, or like Number Munchers. Like, it really looks like a totally different game almost. Like, it loses a lot of that personality, but it is nice. There's a ton of accessibility options where you can, like, I think you can turn up like the contrast and the colors, and a few different things that just make it a little easier to play. And as I've mentioned before, and I think I mentioned when we talked about it, but I love that you can just use basically any face button does your one action that you have, and then either joystick, either the left or the right joystick. But I love that, especially for a game that obviously doesn't have any twitch mechanics really, although I think there might be some that come into play later. I think one of you guys mentioned like that there turns into like like levels that have like a platforming feel to them.
Yeah,
like they introduce a gravity mechanic.
The gravity mechanic, the fall, like something
Like
is
Baba
fall.
is fall, or whatever.
So they will be always being drawn to the bottom of the screen until something interrupts their movement. So,
and even that, it's like you have to shift your perspective, like we mentioned at the top. Like this is a top-down game, but obviously when you're playing these levels, you have to look at it almost as like a side-on.
Yeah, it's like
two-dimensional.
Some of the elements in the level, like are subject to gravity, but others aren't, and it's like trying to wrap your head around both ends of it.
Wow.
And DJ's he was showing me a level the other day that like where it's like Baba is all, or all is you, I think was the mechanic, where you're literally controlling everything on the level.
Yeah. I told these guys about the empty now, like all the space that isn't occupied by anything. And
oh my God.
I just discovered the concept of all, which is all the spaces that are occupied. The
It's
inverse.
such a philosophical way of phrasing. I've just discovered the concept of all.
Copernicus over here.
Oh my.
Another
Oh, man,
element
but
I really appreciated was the text tiles light up and stay lit up to show what an active rule is at that point. And once you push it, it kind of grays out and shows, okay, this is no longer an active thing, impacting your gameplay. So
and I do like
that. It just nails.
Yeah, and I do like that you can pause the game too, and then it will show like in list form all of the rules that you have in place or anything that's active. That's just like nice little touch to be like, okay, what's going on here? Let me reassess the situation.
And also when you are interacting like with the rule set that pertains to Baba and you accidentally turn off Baba is you and the music cuts out and it just like
I think you said it was like a void sound effect. That's a perfect way to put it. Just that like whooshing sound in the background.
That's why that rewind button is pretty clutch.
Yeah. And the fact that it's an infinite rewind too, that you can just keep pressing it and you'll just undo a move one at a time.
Yeah, or hold it down and just fast forward rewind, or you can just click the like fast restart and actually reset the level completely. If you've just like, okay, I've pushed everything around so much that, and there's just all kinds of, I know you DJ, not to keep throwing it back at you, but like you've mentioned, like it's like, isn't there like level is you?
Yeah.
And we keep using as is you, it can be any number of level is flag or, it can be any number of these things.
Yeah. It's like, I keep thinking, okay, I get what they're doing. And then they throw something new at me and I don't know what's going on anymore.
Yeah, it's almost like each world, most puzzle games are, or most games in general, if they're divided up into different worlds or segments, are going to be like, oh, we're throwing a new mechanic into the mix or a new item or a new whatever. But this is like almost like each world is like its own
multiple
game.
New game,
mechanics in each world,
Yeah, or at least something that's like a mechanic that a game could be founded upon. And it's like these are just individual worlds within this one. Seemingly
it's so deep. This game is so impressively like complex.
Yeah, I'm excited to have this one kind of on the back burner. Hopefully, I can get past this level that I'm stuck on. And one thing that we didn't mention that is nice, and I've been kind of restricting myself to play all the levels in order, but it is nice that you can. That not entirely, like you can't play any level at any time, but it does seem like it unlocks like a few levels at a time, like on a few branching paths, so you can kind of experience the game, or like I'm stuck on here, let me find another level that I can, maybe it'll reshape my perspective after I see a new mechanic in that level, and I missed something in that previous level,
or I'm just frustrated with this other level and I just got to play something different. Yeah,
absolutely. Because I think I've technically beaten less levels than you, Kevin, but I've been to more worlds because I've just like every one that I have beaten, I've kind of like spread out and only done the ones that I can and move forward. And I like that I'm able to do that and still have like stuff to go back to. But I also really like the I forget what they're called, if they're plus levels or the harder versions.
Like the harder versions, yeah.
Like you'll do a level and you'll have figured out like the mechanics and you feel really good about that. And then they have a harder version of that, and that usually like will just completely eradicate the way that you solved the previous version of the level. And you just have like the feeling of like the wind coming out of your sails as soon as you see the same level that you spent so much time on and be like, okay, I have no idea how to beat this again.
Especially because you're just too fixated on the solution you did before. Where
Right.
it's like it's hard to try to wrap your head around something new.
It's genius.
Yeah, and I mean, because that's part of my reason why I don't want to jump ahead is like because I'm so like I know they're going to keep throwing new mechanics into the mix, so it's like I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. But yeah, it's like even from level to level, you almost have that, which is crazy. But yeah, I think we can pretty safely say we're all into this one, and we're all going to keep playing it, I think.
One of the ultimate kudos I can give to this game is it's more than almost any other game I've played, a game that I play while I'm like in the shower, just mentally. Like I'm ruminating on levels, just without even really thinking about it. Like it just kind of pops into my head, like it's just kind of swirling around in there. I'm like, oh shoot, let me go try
It's
this.
distracting.
Get out of the
Think about
shower.
moving text boxes around pretty frequently.
Yeah, like, oh, if I put that key over there.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of a game that you can like kind of beat while you're not playing it. If you just
totally
like kind of abstract step away from something that maybe you're running your head against, and then come back and with like a fresh eyes and a fresh mind.
Yeah. And I think we mentioned before too, and I personally was just playing this by myself. Although we did play, I love watch DJ play a little, but it seems like a totally viable game to play like couch co-op, even if you're not touching the controller at all.
Definitely.
You could still be like, as long as you're into playing like the game cooperatively, because I kind of get like, I want to solve the puzzle myself. Like I didn't beat the level myself. But if I'm in the mindset of like, okay, this is what we're doing, like I'm playing this game with a friend, like
And
I can
that.
get in that headspace. Yeah.
And it is helpful to have someone else like, it's like, can you do this? And then I'll try it, and then I can. And it's like, it feels good to have like both of us be like, yes, we did it.
And honestly, I think even potentially somebody who doesn't have a lot of video game background might bring like a totally fresh perspective to some of these puzzles. So
that was literally like one of my friends, Joey, one of my groomsmen.
Yeah.
He was there, and like we just like kind of sat there looking at a level and figured it out, and it was great.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, yeah, I guess I can talk a little bit about another game that I've just kind of dipped my toes into. I haven't played a ton, and it's a little bit different than what I expected. The game's called Overwhelm, and it has kind of like a similar art style to Downwell, even a little less detailed than that. Like it's really like simplistic, minimalist pixel art, pretty zoomed in style, not quite as chunky as Caro Blaster that we talked about, but kind of a similar, even more primitive looking than that, and everything's really like red, black, and white. I think there are a few different color palettes that you can pick from, but this is essentially like a run and gun twin stick shooter, or not twin stick shooter, I shouldn't say, but you're run and gun. I guess you are like using the right stick to aim in 360 degrees. And you're kind of picking off enemies. You do have limited ammo. And you're essentially like the main conceit of this game is that you're dropped into this world. And I thought it was more of a roguelike where the map was going to get shuffled every time that you play, but that doesn't seem to be the case. And I haven't played a ton. I've only played maybe like 30 minutes to an hour, but like you do start every run, you get 3 hits. And every time you take a hit, you die, and you kind of start back at the beginning of the room that you were in. And it does play like a decently sized Metroidvania. I mean, it's on the small side for sure as far as the map goes. But essentially, the world starts out pretty sparse, and there's only like, at least at the start of the game, every time I've played so far, there's been these scorpion enemies that are wandering around. But if you play, I'm always running as fast as I can, and I'm dying like an idiot. But like if I played a little more cautiously, they're pretty easy to avoid. And then you eventually will, and they'll show like I think there's 5 different bosses in the game, and there's on the world map right from the get-go, you can see, hey, here's where the bosses are located. So you know, okay, I'm heading towards these, and then there'll be a crystal in that room once you get to one of them. I've only defeated one of the bosses, and once you get to the room, you shoot the crystal a few times, the boss comes out, and then I died the first few times, but I was able to kill the boss last time that I played. Nice. And so every time you kill a boss, like those like minions of that boss, like there's not necessarily minions that you're fighting, but like mini versions of that boss will now populate the world map. So like the game progressively, every time you kill a boss, and it said something in the description that like the enemies will also like gain that boss's abilities.
Oh boy,
I didn't play enough and see enough of that in action to really know how that comes into play. But basically the core conceit of this game is like, as you defeat these bosses, the game gets tougher and tougher. Like you don't gain any new abilities from what I understand. You just have your typical, you know, kind of single shot. Like you can shoot pretty quickly, but it's kind of like an assault rifle or just like a quick, you got to tap it every time. You can't just hold down the fire button.
Boo.
Well, the enemies, at least to what I've seen, I mean, the game is called Overwhelm, so I'm only imagining this is going to get more overwhelming as time goes on. But for where I've been so far, it's like you can kind of like pick off. It feels really nice actually to like you get like a laser scope sight, like you can see where you're aiming, and it feels really nice to like take that one shot and hit the enemy because you do have limited ammo. So I at least really am enjoying that. And this game does have 2-player co-op as well, for whatever that's worth. It does seem like it's just a mode that they kind of tacked on, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, it feels really nice to control. It's a little awkward to get used to, at least for me, although I think you can change the buttons, but with the twin stick controls, like you kind of want to use the triggers to jump and shoot and whatnot. And you do have like a kind of a dash punch as well. So you can double jump, or you can do a dash punch either in midair or while you're running. But yeah, again, this is just kind of first impressions, but I'm having fun. And I guess the other conceit is like, so after you beat a boss, you're able to then start in that room if you want. Or at least that seemed to be the case after I defeated this one boss. So now every time I start a new run, instead of starting at like the entrance where I normally was starting every other time, I can now start right in the boss room.
That's nice.
I'm starting from scratch, so like I have to shoot the crystal again and beat the boss again and whatnot. But I can kind of cut out some of that travel.
Wouldn't it be better for you to like just leave that part of the world aside and just try to reach the boss of every world
for a checkpoint?
Yeah, for checkpoint, and then be able to do all the bosses.
You have to kill the boss to activate the checkpoint.
Right. I guess I'm saying don't like after
you checkpoint again, like mid run, or like do you only use it at the beginning?
Only at the beginning, I think.
So I'm saying before you start area 2, like let's say you beat the area 1 boss, I would say it'd be better if you're starting a fresh run to start at area 2, do the boss, rather than starting at the area 1 boss, beating it, making the world get harder than trying to get through the world of World 2. It'll be easier to activate the World 2 checkpoint if you don't do the World 1 boss before that.
Or can you not access the World 2 until you beat the World 1?
Yeah, otherwise you'll have to start at the beginning. Like
I thought you got to choose which path to take. I thought, okay.
You only can start in a room of a boss that you've already killed. You can't start, or at the beginning, you can't start in any of the boss rooms. It has to be one that you've defeated
not the
already.
Boss room. I'm saying I'm doing a terrible job.
Yeah, I'm not following this at all. So
that's okay. We'll drop it.
I guess I don't think it would make a huge difference, because either way, once you kill one of the bosses, the game is just going to get harder automatically.
Until your next run. Until your next run, and it all resets, right?
Yeah, but you have to beat it all in one run. To beat the game.
Right.
Is it a linear progression, or can you choose your path?
You can go in any order. Yeah, you can kill the bosses in any order.
Okay, so now I'm with DJ, and I don't know.
So what I'm saying, if you can pick whatever way you want to go, like not boss rooms, just whichever path. Let's say there are 5 paths, like that each leads.
Well, it's all interconnected,
right?
Let's say there's 4 paths.
Say there are 5 paths that have their own bosses at the end of them. You do one of them. You beat one of the bosses,
and the next
so that checkpoint is unlocked. Let's say
I died.
You end up dying.
Die after that. Okay,
I would say, wouldn't it be better to start in the hub world, try to get through a different path, because it'll be easier to activate that checkpoint without making it harder beforehand.
That's like the whole premise of the game, is like you're supposed to, like, they're like experiment in like which order you want to defeat the bosses in as you, and then what way, like if I beat the scorpion boss first or whatever, that enemy is too tough, and now the world is too tough. So it is kind of, you are supposed to like experiment with the order.
That's kind of a Mega Man-ish thing.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Fight the boss that is easiest to you, and then fight the boss that's weak to, and then go on from there.
Yeah. So it has. I sort of see what you're saying. I guess in the long run, it seems like it wouldn't make much of a difference.
In the long
other
run,
than
no.
just
I'm just
for
talking
unlocking.
about in terms of getting the checkpoints unlocked. As
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
And
that would
DJ,
make
that's
sense.
exactly how I would play too.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Okay.
Well, as I said earlier, I'm just an idiot, I guess. So. But anyways, after that confusing segment, I guess I can get back to no. That's on me too, for sure. But I think we can pretty much, or I can wrap that up there, and I'm definitely going to keep playing this game, so I'll update when I play some more.
Nice.
But I think we can move on, and we all picked this game up on the cheap thanks to our good friends at Qubic Games, who are not actually our friends at all. But
We'd
they
like
do
them to be our friends.
Well, no, I mean we
full disclosure, we're not friends with them.
Friends of pod.
not even on social media, but we do have. We mentioned their kind of loyalty program or whatever we called it or whatever they call it. I don't know, but it's pretty cool. I mean, we all picked up this game one strike for 50 cents, I think, and it's normally only $5, but because we owned Blazing Beaks or whatever other games we own from Qubic, we were able to pick up this game for 50 cents, and we all played a little bit, but John played the most. So why don't you lead us off here?
Sure. So One Strike is a fighting game, like a 2D fighting game, like Street Fighter or any other.
Yeah, like 1 versus 1.
Yeah, where you have one hit point, and you basically the only controls are like left, right, dodge, and then attack and block. And you basically each character has different windows for what their block is and like a range on what their attack is. And so you're basically just trying to figure out how, like, what your opponent's window of vulnerability is and using that to get an attack in before they attack you and yours. And because it's one strike, like they're very quick battles. Like,
Right.
I played through the arcade mode, which is, it says in the description, is a good way to learn how to use characters. I don't remember any of the characters' names, but the character that I ended up playing with, she had like a scythe on a rope. So like
Me
her,
too.
and I think most, or at least I played the very first character that you can select. I played him for a little bit, and then I played her for a little bit. And I think both of them have a 2-stage attack where you have to press the attack button twice in order to actually activate attack.
Huh.
And like, so I would be like activating attack, but that I think prevents you from blocking.
Right.
So like you're trying to get into range to another character and then finally landing the attack. Or if they're going to attack, then or block your attack, then you have this window of vulnerability to their attack, and you need to figure out your dodges. And the arcade mode, you have 5 lives per character, both you and the other character. So it becomes like, you're trying to figure out what this other character's like window of vulnerability is, and like you have 5 chances either way to get them, like kill them or they kill you. And I enjoyed that. I thought it was a good way, like arcade mode, especially for, I forget what the like other mode is called.
Yeah, you did the mode I should have done.
Yeah.
The one I did was just like, okay, just run through all the bosses
Yes.
on one life.
One hit.
And I was just like, okay, I'll give this a few minutes, and I can't.
Yeah.
Same.
It was, but I really liked the arcade mode just because, like, you know, the first couple times, like, I would die to a new character because I hadn't figured out their, like, the strategy to go up against them. But then, like, after they got like 1 kill on me, I'd be like, okay, I think I got this. And then, you know, I get 3 on them, and then they get 1 on me again. I was still just playing it on easy, so like they have different difficulty levels on top of that. But I was able to beat it with that one character, and I liked it. I haven't played it against a human yet, which I would like to, because I like playing multiplayer fighting games, especially against friends, because I think that's a good way to really ramp up the tension, especially with a game like this where it's not like Bushido Blade level of
or
like
even
complexity.
Street Fighter, you know, I mean, all these button inputs for, you know, to at least do the special moves and really get like the whole, what the game has on offer. It's like, I do kind of like that, like, hey, as long as you have some, as long as you're acclimated with a video game controller, like 2 buttons, you know, this is a pretty straightforward, it's all about timing.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think for me, I don't know that like other than playing the arcade mode like you did, like probably just to get the hang of the characters, like it seems like that's like basically a suitable tutorial.
Yeah.
And then for me, it definitely seems like if on the right night, if the game just clicked with the right group of friends, it could definitely be a fun game to pass the controller around and play with people. I definitely, now that I know you're interested, John, I think we're gonna have to try this one out together.
And I think like it has a much lower like stake level than say like Nidhogg, where like that is at least Nidhogg 1 is like kind of a similar level of complexity. Like there aren't a lot of options, but like that is such a tense game. And if you're playing against someone who is an equal level of you, like it is a long game.
A little more back and forth, like,
and,
tension. Yeah.
That is
outlasting people at that point.
Yeah. I remember playing against DJ and like Nidhogg 1, and I think like we had a match that lasted at least 30 minutes. And it was horrible.
You loved it.
I did. I loved it. I never wanted to do it again because it was the most stress I'd ever felt.
It's an investment. Even like Mario Tennis, like when you play Mario Tennis with people online, it's like if you're evenly matched, that game is going on forever. Just you're sitting in deuce forever.
Yeah. Which is I kind of like in One Strike that just one hit and then it resets.
Yeah.
But I'm actually very interested because of One Strike, in the sequel, which they are developing now, which is Two Strikes, which is basically the same game, just have 2 strikes to kill instead of 1. And it is, instead of being in like this pixel art, it's in this like ukiyo-e painting style from like Japan, and it looks gorgeous.
It's a really striking, incredible, like black and white. I think it was black and white, right?
I think it's white and red.
Okay.
Like black, white, and red.
Okay. It just was like very vivid. I just remember being like, oh, that looks like, because the pixel art is not bad on One Strike or anything, but it's nothing that you're like, oh, well, this looks awesome. It's like really kind of bland, like almost faceless characters. Yeah. It's interesting because they almost, I forget who mentioned this, they almost look like stickers because they have like a white outline like border around them. It almost looks like a sticker or something, but yeah, I don't know, but this is definitely, it seems like they're going not necessarily art forward, but they're putting more of an emphasis on the art in Two Strikes.
Yeah.
That's cool, because I thought the first one was a little slapdash with a lot of that stuff, the polish of it, presentation wise, to me. I think that's also why I fell off.
Yeah, and again, I'm not trying to say this is some kind of amazing game, but I definitely could see having a fun night with it for sure.
Oh yeah, it's 50 cents. I'm not going to tear it to shreds. You know, it does
exactly, and it gives us access to all those other Qubic deals now that we have it. So
absolutely
sweet. Well, why don't we keep the ball in John's court here, and we'll talk about a little Pokemon.
Put the Pokeball in John's court.
Yeah, I dropped the ball on that for sure. God, that was just horrible.
Let's keep it going. Keep the puns a rolling.
But yeah, John wrapped up. I think you finished up Pokemon Sword.
I have seen the credits of Sword and Shield.
Of course, it's never over.
More?
It's never over.
There's always a post game.
You got to find Mew.
I gotta get. I do have the final Pokemon in the Pokedex. So there are only 400 Pokemon in Pokemon Sword and Shield. Only 400.
Oh, I'm aware because the internet freaked out for some reason.
I know. That's not how I had ever played Pokemon.
No.
I've always started with a new team every time. And one of the stipulations that I set up for myself is that I will beat the game with only using new Pokemon.
Nice.
So I never
new to this
generation
or whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Generation. Yeah.
And that was actually one of the things that kind of made this one a little bit difficult for me, because I don't typically choose Pokemon based on type advantages for that.
Right.
I usually just pick whatever ones I like most.
Yeah. But
man, a lot of the ones I liked most in this series were either just one type or multiple types of the same one. I think 3 of my favorite Pokemon in this were all bug type. And I was not going to have a team with 3 bug types.
Yeah.
As much
team
as
with
I
any
love.
Bug type.
No, you should always have a team with a bug type because they're good against dark and psychic and grass. Anyway, I really liked this installment in the Pokemon series. I'm a big fan. I've played every single game in the series.
Wow.
And over the years, there have just been so many quality of life improvements, and I think that this game is no exception to that. They've added so many things that are just nice and kept so many things that are nice. I think one of the things that I have issues with in Pokemon is that they have a lot of sometimes unnecessary mechanics that are added to like some of the newer games, and then those ones don't typically survive to the next one, or they're just like little gimmicks that are added. And I've actually kind of liked I think Mega Evolutions, the Z moves, and with this one, the Dynamax mechanics, which are not necessarily like stuff that gets carried over from game to game, but it's just something that's unique to each main title in the series.
Right.
In this one, the Dynamaxing is like anytime that you're in a specific like Dynamaxing area, you can have once per battle a Pokemon turn into Dynamax, which is just they become huge.
Yeah, they get real big.
This is typically on like a football pitch of English football, not our American football. But I really like the way that they've presented the mechanic, especially within the context of the like these arena matches that are the gym challenge is different in this one. That's been something that they've been overhauling since Sun and Moon, where the way that was incorporated into the story was that the Alola region like was in like starting up their own gym league. Didn't have one that was established like the other ones, so they were kind of new and like figuring it out. And then they were building the Elite Four as like the game was happening.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, and then in Sword and Shield, like they have like this. It's way more like modeled over like football, like what is it? FC football clubs. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So like each one like has their like these arenas that people go to, and they're all watching you, and like there's they're chanting along, and like
cool.
the boss or the gym battles. It's really fun, and it's a good way of world building.
Yeah.
But also like a criticism I've heard of it since beating the game that like I hadn't really thought of until I heard it was that there isn't really much of a focus on the story in terms of like your typical like like in the first one you're fighting Team Rocket, or in Ruby Sapphire you're fighting Team Magma or Team Aqua, and there's these huge plans, and those are happening in Sword and Shield, but they're way in the background. Like you basically don't interact with that story that's happening like until the very end of the game. Like there's one part where you go to a gym and they're like, oh, there's a crisis in like the power reactor under this gym, and I'm like, oh cool, I'm gonna like fight that and figure that out, and then like all the adults are like, we'll take care of it, you go fight like some more gym battles.
All right.
And I was like, oh, okay, I guess
in a way that makes sense. Like in the first ones, like how are you supposed to take down Team Rocket before you've proved yourself to be like this champion?
Right.
Like, you're just this average, like only got like 4 gym badges kind of kid.
And it's like, and the way that they frame it in Sword and Shield is that like, since everybody's watching these games, like they also know who you are. So the more gyms you beat, the more people like recognize you, and they're like, hey, good job in like fighting the gyms.
That's cool.
And, like once you beat it, like everybody refers to you as champion, which that's never happened before.
Yeah.
And like, I was, when we were talking about it before, I was saying, it's like, oh yeah, I haven't beaten the Elite Four. There's not an Elite Four in this game.
Oh, wow.
And like what it ends up being is there's a tournament of gym leaders at the end where it's like you're all fighting the rest of the gym leaders again.
Oh, that's cool.
Well, like, but it's in like a tournament form, so you're not actually fighting all of them. You're just fighting like the like quarterfinals, semifinals, finals,
that's a cool idea.
And then you fight the champion.
Is that like a set like?
I don't know.
You will always fight this boss at this.
I hope it's randomized because like I liked how I was just like fighting a stronger version of the gym leaders team that I fought before.
Yeah, that's cool.
It was fun.
I like that.
So I have 2 questions for you.
Shoot.
Number 1, I know you mentioned to us before when we were kind of talking about what we were all playing before the episode, like that the end game, at least, or this tournament section, like got a little tougher, like and you're having to bust out a little more strategy. And like, I'm someone who, to be honest, and I'm not trying to brag, I have never lost a battle in a Pokemon game, and I have not played all the games, but it's too easy.
Yeah,
it's that you don't really have to think unless you really get like unlucky with like your team like having all types of Pokemon that you're just going to hit a stone wall at this gym leader.
Right.
It's a little too easy most of the time. But what kind of challenges were you hitting at the end?
A thing that I really like about recent Pokemon games is once you get to the Elite Four, like you will have like, oh yeah, like this is the Elite Four member that has like Pokemon of all this type, and you can plan around that. But almost all of those Pokemon will have a move, like a high level move that is completely against their type.
Right.
And it's usually that more super effective against a type that they're vulnerable to.
Right.
So I remember like there was one that I was sending out. I forget who I was fighting, but I sent out my ice bug Pokemon, and like they just like wrecked me with flamethrower. I'm like, you should not know a fire type. There's no way that you should know a fire type move. But it just instantly KO'd me, and I was like a level of like difficulty that I just was not expecting. And that I really like that they still have those, especially at the like late end game battles. And like another thing is that I really like how they've kind of revamped experience in the past couple titles, where in like they will give you experience anytime that you successfully finish a battle, which also includes catching the Pokemon. So even before, if you like caught a Pokemon, you wouldn't get any experience.
Right.
And they also have experience share built into the whole thing. So like if you like beat a Pokemon, all of your Pokemon get experience.
Which is huge.
Or if you catch,
that was a big deal when
easy.
they added that.
It's such a nice thing that, again, once they introduced it, I cannot believe that it was not in there from the beginning.
Right.
So, like, I was catching a lot of Pokemon. I think at this point, I haven't played too much past the end game. I had like 210 or 230. So, like, I was around midway, and I was doing a good job of, like, training and evolving and catching a lot. But I still wanted to progress in the story, so I wasn't, over leveling or over training. Also, there aren't a ton of trainers in the game, period. So it is mostly a focus on catching.
Okay. And just fighting Pokemon in the wild to get experience?
Yeah. And like there are like, the gym battles that are pretty good, like paced out, like in terms of level. Like I was a little over leveled for most of the gym fights, but once I got to like the champion, like I think like I was kind of expecting to be as over leveled as I was for the like beginning half of the game. But like he was sending out some that were like 10 levels higher than my lowest. Or like, yeah. And well, I mean, I came in with like, I was like, oh yeah, like this will be my weak one. And then as soon as like he threw out one that was 10 levels over, I was like, I can't use this one except for as a sponge.
Come back.
Yep.
Yeah, and I guess my other question is just like I'm liking everything you're saying, but it does still sound like overall it's like other than bringing it into like a console, full 3D, and I know they've kind of done some 3D stuff on the DS and 3DS, but it still mostly sounds like it's quality of life improvements and some new tweaks and stuff, but it still doesn't sound like this is like a new Pokemon experience. It kind of sounds like it's more of the same. With some new cool stuff, but I don't know if that's enough to grab me because I feel like I've played the formula. I don't know.
I remember I convinced you to buy Pokemon Black, and I'm sorry that you didn't.
I mean,
enjoy it as much as I liked
I had
it.
a fun time. I always play about half of the game. I feel like, other than I played all the way through Red or Blue. I think I had Red, and I think that's the only one I've played all the way through. And I mean, I was hooked on that game, but who wasn't at that time?
Yep.
But other than that, I feel like I've just kind of gotten about halfway through. And
so, yeah, like beyond the quality of life and improvements, there's not much more beyond that. Like I've always liked the core conceit of all the Pokemon games. So that's been enough for me to keep going. But yeah, if you're really wanting for there to be a revolution in like the mechanics of the Pokemon game, you're not really going to get it.
Yeah. And I guess I'm not so much looking for a revolution, but just something that's a little more of a hook than just like updated visuals and yeah, again, quality of life improvements. Even though it's really impressive that they've been just chipping away at this, core set of mechanics and just honing it in over the course of probably almost 2 decades now.
I will say that the improvement that was in Pokemon Let's Go Eevee, where you could see the Pokemon in the wild, like random encounters weren't really a thing anymore, and you
That's a
could
big
actually.
deal.
That's huge.
It does feel great, especially in Sword and Shield, where like I would go to a new route and I would see like a Pokemon that was like one of my favorites from an older game, and I'm like, I need to get that right now.
Yeah.
Or I would see one that I've never, like a brand new Pokemon. I'm like, what the hell is that? I need to
cool.
get that.
More like a cartoon in a way that way.
Yeah. And then especially even like in those areas, they'll have like most of them are in the like tall grass that you have to venture into, but there are also like very strong versions, usually that are too strong for you to even catch, because there are level requirements until you get like gym badges. Like you can't like catch a level 50 Pokemon like right off the bat, even though you can still encounter one. But that's why they've introduced Poké Dolls, which were always a item that you could get in the ones, but like it was always it's a free runaway,
right?
And like you didn't really use that as a mechanic in the older ones. But if you accidentally run into a level 50 Steelix when you don't have any gym badges, that is a godsend.
Okay. Yeah, I did forget about that added feature of like having even though it is kind of a quality of life thing, I do love, and we've talked about it, I think even in Dragon Quest as well.
Oh yeah,
like I love having those enemies on the map. It just makes it something about random battles. It turns the game into a little bit more of a tedious process, and knowing what you're getting into. And hey, I'm looking for Pokemon. Hey, I'm trying to avoid battles. Whatever it is, you can kind of cater to the experience you want to have. Or on the Switch, when you're pick up and play, hey, I have some time, I want to just grind and level up. Or hey, I'm trying to push the story forward, I got a few hours to set aside here. So I do kind of like that.
So just seeing the enemies on the overworld just makes it feel so much more alive too, I feel.
Absolutely.
For those Pokemon games where you can see the enemies, in Gold, Silver, they introduced like the dogs that will randomize throughout the map. Are there those types of Pokemon in the wild that you can like?
I think there are, but as they're legendary, they're the later ones in the game. So I think they're the ones that might be the titular Sword and Shield.
Oh, okay.
I haven't encountered them in the wild yet.
Okay.
But I believe that's what they are
She's
like.
going to be sprinting.
Yeah.
Cool. I think we can pretty much wrap it up there on the Pokemon, and probably wrap it up there for the episode this week, yeah?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, hopefully this one, this Baba is You discussion won't be lost to the ages.
Same setup.
Yeah. Hopefully the triple mics will treat us well. Third time's a charm. Second time, I don't know. So we'll see. But yeah, thanks for listening. And you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, pursuingpixels.com, or, again, anywhere you can type /pursuingpixels, you can probably find us. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next week. And take care.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I just don't want to take any chances after losing that one, because it seemed like it was just a pure, like, fluke thing that just, it randomly happens with GarageBand and Logic, and it'll just convert the audio to 8-bit.
No, thank you.
And then tell you that that's not compatible with GarageBand. So,
and we hate 8-bit at Pursuing Pixels.
8-bit, yeah.